All right, welcome to my live drawing session. Today I'm going to be drawing GROO the Wanderer, created by Sergio Aragones. Here, I was going to draw it the way I would draw for my students, but I'm going to draw it how I normally draw GROO. For those of you who are not aware, I've been a huge fan of GROO and Sergio Aragones since I was a kid. I remember reading the comics about 7 years old. And started drawing him around the same age. Just loved the way he looked and the humor in the book. And Sergio created GROO. Well, the first time GROO was printed was 1984, or was it 82? Now I get confused. Let me move this up a little bit. And this is just drawing from memory, which, if you know me, I do not have a good memory. But I do know GROO. I won't be drawing his dog, Roberto, just because that would take longer. And I can never remember which side of Roberto's face the black eye is on, because he's got a little black patch around his eye. So I'm drawing the body right now. I'm drawing fairly loosely. And I would tighten up the image once I start inking. See, then he's got the I can't remember the name of it. The sheath for his sword. Oops. Now, Sergio has been the only artist to have drawn GROO over the years. At least officially, I should say. Now, of course, there's people that are willing or would do knockoffs and stuff like that. Sergio's the only one to have drawn GROO officially. And he continues to work on GROO, but he does miniseries now. Like the next one he's doing is going to be a crossover. He did one crossover before where GROO, it was GROO versus Conan the Barbarian. And the next one he's doing is GROO versus Tarzan, or at least GROO meets Tarzan. And I'm starting to ink. This is where I start to bring in the permanent lines, clean up my messes. And if you don't know anything about GROO, GROO is basically an idiot. He's great with his swords, but that's about it. He's a very skilled swordsman and a fighter. Or at least a battler. I don't know if that's a word or not, but I'm going to use it because he loves fighting. He loves phrase. But he's very dumb and clumsy. He doesn't necessarily have friends, but he has a lot of enemies. Even his own family hates him. His own sister has tried many times to kill him, as well as his dear old granny GROO. And his sister and grandma or granny are much smarter than he is. His sister's actually a queen, and his granny is a gypsy woman. Now, if you notice, I'm actually shifting a few things here and there, redrawing some spots when I'm inking this. Just checking to see if anybody is writing anything. You're more than welcome to make comments, or if you have any questions. Shift this up. Now, GROO is also very, short and fat, but not proud of that, like old Pooh Bear. He's actually quite dumpy, really. But considering his height and his size, he's actually quite limber. And he goes from town to town trying to eat, trying to make money so he can eat. And some people are so scared of him that they just go ahead and give him food. He has a reputation for being an idiot and for being dangerous. Not that he's necessarily going out to be dangerous, but more along the lines of bad things just tend to happen when he's around. GROO's favorite food, Les, thank you for asking, is cheese dip. And Sergio and his writing partner, Mark Evanier, originally hadn't planned on having GROO have a favorite food. But running gag that took place in the comics was that every so often they would Mark Evanier would write in that GROO was eating cheese dip or looking for cheese dip, and the fans started to catch on and then started to ask about it, and it became a running gag. And it wound up, Sergio and Mark basically have a lifetime supply of cheese dip thanks to their fans. See, Sergio creates the plot in the drawings and the inking, and Mark Evanier does the actual text and dialogue. And then there's a man named Stan Sakai who does the lettering, and he was also the letterer for the Spider-Man comic strip back when the late Stan Lee was the writer for the comic strip. And Stan Sakai is also most known for his comic character, Usagi Yojimbo, which is a great comic book. Oh, I gotta get that sheath in there. And then we'll put his knife over here, even though you don't usually see it that often. And you can't have a drawing or a painting without some type of background. And GROO being GROO, he's very well known for accidentally setting fire to towns. Some of my favorite issues of GROO is when GROO would have flashbacks to his childhood, and just the way Sergio drew the characters and the little stories were just I love them. They show how clumsy GROO is and how dumb GROO is. And back, when he's a kid, you expect him to be to not be too smart because he's just a kid, but then he never gets any smarter. Sergio is the sweetest man you'll ever meet. Tell us about his history with... Okay. Les mentioned Sergio's history with Mad Magazine. Sergio's been with Mad Magazine since, I want to say, 1962. My memory is really bad today. But Sergio was born in Spain in 1937, and his family left Spain during the Spanish Civil War, and moved to Mexico. While in Mexico, Sergio was pursuing a degree in architecture, but never actually finished it, if I remember right. So he has some background in architecture, quite a bit. And once he got out of school, he was doing artwork for different publications in Mexico, and got quite a reputation for his artwork. And then he went to New York and visited the Mad Magazine offices, showed his portfolio. They hired him, from what I understand, hired him on the spot, and he's been working with them ever since. And he has not missed an issue. He's only missed one issue of Mad Magazine, and that was the fault of the post office. And if I remember right, it's like back in the 70s. when it took place. Other than that, Sergio's been in every issue of Mad Magazine. He does the Mad Look At portions. He does the was it the Shadow Nose? I want to say is the title of it. And he does all the little oh, I can't think of any words today. He does the little doodles in the marginals of the magazine. He was also an actor. He was on a show called The New Laugh-In. Now, see what I'm doing here is I'm adding some shadows here and there to add a little bit more form. And I'm just using hash lines. It's very common with Sergio's work, as he does a lot of hash lines. I don't want to do too many because I don't want it to get too busy, but and Sergio is one of, but not the oldest Mad Magazine artists that they have now. Because so many have passed away, some have moved on to other things. And the nickname that they that the publisher, oh, of course I can't think of his name either, kind of gave the people who worked at Mad was the usual gang of idiots. So Sergio is one of the first usual gang of idiots that's still working on the magazine. And that's pretty much, other than erasing, which takes a while, and I've already used 17 minutes of my time here. But my last step would be erasing all the pencil lines. And on occasion, and it's been quite a while since he's been there, but on occasion, Sergio Aragones will appear at comic book conventions. The ones he attends regularly are the ones in California, like the San Diego Comic-Con, and what is the other one? And there's another one that's a big one, but not as big as the San Diego Comic-Con. But he has come to Michigan a few times. Last time he was at the Motor City Comic-Con. Was that 2010, I think? Because I've met him twice at the Motor City Comic-Con. The last time was in 2010. The first time was in 2007, which was 30 years after I picked up the books for the first time. And then he also was the guest of honor at MSU for their comics forum back in, what was it, 2015, I think, either 2015 or 2016. And at that point, I was able to take my family to meet him, and that was a huge treat for me. Was having my family meet one of my heroes and idols. So there we have it. There we have GROO. I know you can't see the whole picture, so I'll just kind of scan through. Yes, that's what Les mentions, that Sergio also did the little animated janitor on the 80s show Bloopers and Practical Jokes with Ed McMahon and Dick Clark. That was Sergio's caricature of himself as a janitor, which when I started watching that show, I noticed that right away. And he has done different animations over the years for some shows, including Mad and the Mad TV, but the one on the Mad on Cartoon Network, that's the one where you can actually see his artwork more. And he was doing cartoons for the Go-Gurt containers a few years ago. So if you were buying Go-Gurt back in the Early to mid 2000s, I do believe, you would see Sergio Aragones' artwork. So this, oh, and I always try to give credit where credit is due, especially when it comes to Sergio. And there we go. It is now lunchtime, so I'm going to leave. So I hope you enjoyed yourself. It did take a lot longer for me to draw this than I planned. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and you have a good day.